Hello everyone, my name is Laura Rouse, and for this project I chose to compare the works of Mark Brown and Jan and Stan Berenstain. Brown is famous for his Arthur adventures, and the Berenstains are famous for the Berenstain Bears. I chose these two because I remember reading their works when I was a child and always enjoyed them. Also, there are a lot of obvious similarities between their famous works, and I wanted to dig deeper into them. Both Brown and the Berenstains do their own writing and illustrating, so I will compare both. The works of both these authors could fall into two categories: fantasy and realistic fiction. Fantasy books are stories about unrealistic events and usually take place in a world created by the author. The reason you could say that the Arthur and the Berenstain Bears are fantasy is because the characters are talking animals. Realistic fiction books are about real-life situations. Sometimes they are exaggerated, but they are still possible. To me, this is a more fitting category for their works. Even though they involve talking animals, they represent humans and real-life situations. Before I begin comparing their works, I'd like to give a brief background on each of these authors. Mark Brown was born November 25, 1946, in Erie, Pennsylvania. He grew up listening to his grandma, Thora, telling him stories. He named Arthur's grandma Thora in her honor. From 1964 to 1969, he attended the Cleveland Art Institute. He held various jobs before releasing his first Arthur book, Arthur's Nose, in 1976. Brown's Arthur stories have been made into a popular TV series on PBS that first aired in 1996 and is still running today. Jan Grant and Stan Berenstain were both born in Philadelphia in 1923. They met in 1941 while taking an art class at the Philadelphia Museum School of Art. During World War II, Stan served in the Army as a medical illustrator, and Jan worked as a riveter in an aircraft factory and as a draftsman for the Army Corps of Engineers. They got married in 1946 after the war ended. After that, they worked together as a team, writing magazine cartoons, many of which contained adult humor. In 1962, they published their first Berenstain Bears book, The Big Honey Hunt, through Random House Publishing, where Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss, was their editor. The book introduced Papa, Mama, and at the time Small Bear. In 1974, Small Bear became Brother Bear when they introduced Sister Bear. There has been several TV adaptations of the series as well, including a Saturday morning cartoon on CBS from 1985 to 86. They have both since passed away, Stan in 2005 and Jan in 2012. Today, their son Mike continues to write the Berenstain Bears stories. Brown and the Berenstains do have a lot of similarities in their books. Here I will break down the similarities and differences in their writing styles. Brown commonly writes in the third-person limited point of view. In the Arthur books, the narrator's focus is on Arthur. His plots are chronological and easy to follow, and his books usually teach a lesson or relate a story about dealing with common family and life experiences. Over the course of the years, his writing style in the Arthur books has become more complex. For example, from Arthur's Nose, written in 1976. He could change his nose. That's what he could do about it. Arthur told his friends that he was going to see the rhinologist for a new nose. His friends were very surprised. Compared to this excerpt from Arthur's Baby, written in 1987. "We have a surprise for you," said Mother and Father. "Is it a bicycle?" asked Arthur. "We're going to have a baby," said Mother. "Ooh," squealed D.W., "I love babies." "A baby?" said Arthur. "Yes, in about 6 months," said Father. "Plenty of time for us to get ready." As you can see, he uses a lot more dialogue in his later books. Like Brown, the Berenstains write in the third-person point of view, except they use the omniscient form. They also use chronological plots. Their books clearly focus on teaching life lessons. For example, The Messy Room teaches about organization, and The Green-Eyed Monster teaches about the dangers of envy and jealousy. They also use a lot of ironic humor. For example, in The Bear's Vacation, Papa is trying to teach Small Bear about beach safety, and he continually makes the mistakes he is warning his son against. Similar to Brown, there is a change in complexity of the writing over the years. For example, from The Bear's Picnic, written in 1966, Mother Bear, put your apron away. We are going to go on a picnic today. Where are we going on our picnic, Dad? To the very best place in the world, my lad. Compared to this excerpt from No Girls Allowed, written in 1986. Ever since Sister Bear had been a tiny cub, she liked to tag along with Brother Bear and his friends. It was a bit of a nuisance because she slowed down their running. As you can tell, the sentences are more complicated. They don't have the simple rhyme scheme of the previous example. The big difference between Brown and the Berenstein's writing style is the use of descriptive writing. Brown almost completely relies on his illustrations alone to describe the setting. He is much more direct in his writing. On the other hand, the Berensteins use a lot of descriptive writing. This adds to the complexity of their stories. Here are a couple of examples. The first is from Arthur's Nose. This is Arthur's house. This is Arthur. He is worried about his nose. This is Arthur's mom. This is Arthur's dad. This is Arthur's sister. And this one is from Arthur's baby. One day after school, DW grabbed Arthur's arm. I will teach you how to diaper a baby, she said. Don't worry about diapers, said Mother. Come sit next to me. I want to show you something. On the page this is taken from, the living room of their house is a mess. Yet Brown doesn't mention that in the writing. He is relying on his illustrations to convey that information to the reader. Now here's an example from the Berenstein Bears' The Messy Room. From the outside, the Bears' treehouse, which stood beside a sunny dirt road, deep in bear country, looked very neat and well kept. The flower beds sparkled with red, yellow, and blue tulips. The woodwork was freshly painted and in good repair. The grass was cut and the vegetable garden patch was properly weeded. Even the bird's nest that perched on one of the treehouse branches was well trimmed. Their writing is clearly much more descriptive than Brown's. Since Brown and the Berensteins did their own illustrations as well as their writing, I will briefly compare them. First, I'd like to mention how Arthur's appearance has changed over the years. In the early books, Arthur looked more like an aardvark than he does today. As time went on, Brown developed a more human appearance for Arthur and his friends. You can see how he's changed on the top of this slide. Brown uses a wide range of colors in his works, from bright to dull. Also, if you look closely, there are small details that are humorous or reference his family. For example, the top left is from Arthur's baby. His mother is eating pickles and ice cream. The top right is from the same book. One of the baby's names in the nursery is Toland, which is his son's name. Also, the bottom three pictures are from some other books illustrated by Brown. You can distinctly see his style of animals in them, especially the bottom right, which is the book Dinosaur Divorce, written by his wife, Lori Cransey Brown. Moving on to the Berensteins, they also use animals to represent their characters, but they haven't changed dramatically over the years, as you can see. They use lots of bright colors, but there aren't the hidden details like in Brown's illustrations. When you look at the early cartoons by the Berensteins, there isn't an obvious distinction that connects them with their later works. There is a big difference in how these two illustrators set up their pages. Brown tends to have sharp, direct edges to his illustrations, similar to his writing. He usually has a border around the edge of the page, and when several scenes are shown on the same page, it is easy to see where one ends and the other begins. On the other hand, the Berenstein's illustrations take up the whole page with no border. Different scenes round out on the edge and round into the next. They flow together, matching their writing style. Last but not least, I will talk about the different audiences these two authors targeted. Brown's Arthur books are targeted towards children who are in about second grade. They focus on common experiences and reactions of a child of about that age. And they are very relatable. Arthur himself is in the 2nd grade. Most of the Berenstain Bears books are targeted more towards a 3rd to 4th grader, other than the early books, which would be more appropriate for a kindergartner to a 1st grader. All their books teach a lesson or moral that is important for children to learn. In conclusion, even though Mark Brown and Stan and Jan Bernstein write books with similar message and themes and use animals to represent their characters, the similarities pretty much end there. They have different writing and illustrating styles that are unique to each of them, but they will both be long remembered for their contributions to children's literature.